It is quite a pleasure to be associated with such an esteemed group. Alexis de Tocqueville's philosophy was, if someone was in need, strangers would open their purse willingly to help. And that's why we're all here. We're the strangers who are there to open our purse. The United Way is such a wonderful organization who reaches so many people and so many other organizations. One that is very important to us, as probably most of you know, the Juvenile Diabetes Association. And we are thrilled to be a part of the United Way. And we're so glad that you're here. And we're very appreciative for all that you do for the United Way and to help us to complete the mission of Alexis de Tocqueville.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Wasn't that a fabulous dinner? I'm Judy Chanel, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure to serve our community as the current chair of the board for United Way of Greensboro. First, I want to give thanks to Vanessa and Roy and Carol for hosting us this evening and opening up their lovely home to us. Can we give them a round of applause? I'd also like to thank the Tocqueville Event Committee members for their leadership with tonight's event. Please stand when I call your name. This event wouldn't have been possible without you. Vanessa Carroll, Sally Cohn, May Douglas, Linda Sloan, Judy White, Sue White, Susan Weiss, and Anna Rob. Thank you so much. Tonight would not have been possible without the generous sponsorship of a number of other organizations. First, Zara Financial Services. Thank you so much for your sponsorship. Shipments provided the lovely silver anniversary gifts that were at your seats. I don't think anyone's dug into them yet, but those Godiva chocolates are just waiting for you, thanks to the Fresh Market. Randy McManus Designs provided the gorgeous orchid centerpieces at your tables. And finally, the Painted Plate provided the wonderful meal that we ate tonight and helped sponsor this event. Thank you so much. As we reflect on the past 25 years, it's with deep gratitude to each of you, whose philanthropy and caring spirit as members of the United Way Tocqueville Society has created a lasting impact for children and families in Greensboro. Thank you so much. As Margaret Mead once said, never believe that a few caring people can't change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Greensboro is our community. It's where we live, it's where we work, it's where we choose to raise our families. Together we make it stronger, safer, and healthier for all. Let's raise our glass and toast the next 25 years as we build the strongest community of caring possible for today, for tomorrow, for all of us. Thank you.
And I am on the board of directors for United Way of Greensboro. I'm also on their community investment committee, and I'm also a Tocqueville member. 2 years ago, our church Greensboro after living in Atlanta for several years. And while I was there, I served as a corporate executive for a major employer there. I was also engaged with United Way of Greater Atlanta. I was part of their African American partnership, and I was also part of the Cole Women's Society, which was named in honor of Dr. Genevieve Cole, who many of you know or remember as the president emeritus of Bennett College of Women. So I am delighted to be back in Greensboro, back home, and continuing my engagement and involvement with United Way here. So at this occasion, after 25 years, we need to remind some and introduce to others why we call ourselves Tocqueville members. It all started with a young 26-year-old lawyer in France, Alexis de Tocqueville, who was interested in changing how criminals are treated in France. So he decided to travel to the United States almost 2 centuries ago to study our penal system. He was especially struck by something that did not exist in France. He saw people actually volunteer to do things for the common good. People willingly gave support, love, and respect to one another through hidden acts of goodness, habits of kindness, and selflessness. And in order to help one another even better, he noticed that Americans formed associations or committees. They formed associations around a number of causes, such as to teach classes, distribute books, to build hospitals, prisons, and schools. It was through these associations that society really functioned. And where he saw that the French were primarily concerned about themselves, he saw a different dynamic in America. In his words, the only way opinions and ideas can be renewed, hearts enlarged, and human minds developed is through the reciprocal influence of men upon each other. These influences are what associations alone can achieve. He was also totally amazed by the generosity of people, their willingness to band together, and their concern with the community as a whole. The name was chosen because of Tocqueville's admiration for the spirit of voluntary effort for the common good. The Alexis de Tocqueville Society of United Way of Greater Greensboro was founded 25 years ago to foster, promote, and recognize the vital importance of voluntary community service and personal giving at an exceptional level. Your expressions of generosity have helped to build a stronger Greensboro. Today, there are nearly 400 Tocqueville societies in the United States, France, and other countries. Thank you, the trailblazers, for your passion, ongoing support, and keeping the spirit of Alexis de Tocqueville alive and thriving in Greensboro. Thank you.
Thank you very much, May. And before I get started, everyone likes a birthday, don't they? Well, tonight, Phyllis Schatz is celebrating her 85th birthday. Phyllis, stand up! Stand up, Phyllis! Can we please sing happy birthday to Phyllis? I can't sing, so 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Phyllis. Happy birthday to you. So again, good evening. And I've had the opportunity to meet most of you. I am Michelle Getters Clark, and I am the president and CEO of United Way of Greater Greensboro. 14 years ago, my family and I moved to Greensboro from New York City in support of my career at American Express. Since the year 2000, we have come to love Greensboro, and we call it home. After leaving my role as Senior Vice President of American Express in 2009, I committed myself to community service writing a book, and my family. In January of 2013, the United Way Board of Directors appointed me as interim president. And on June 24th of that same year, I was appointed the president and CEO. I guess I did an all right job. As I approach my 1-year tenure in 41 days, but who's counting? I am honored to recall for you that the United Way has served Greater Greensboro for 92 years, originating as the community chest. The generous spirit of leaders like you have contributed almost $400 million in those 92 years. We have been able to strengthen and serve others. Since the establishment of the Alexis de Tocqueville Society in Greater Greensboro 25 years ago, we have accelerated our progress to serve others. We have impacted thousands of lives in the best ways. We have given hope. We have given a voice to the voiceless. And we have given opportunities to our neighbors. I'd like to highlight just some of the great work that makes United Way strong because of your leadership. The Born Learning Trail in Claremont Courts, Early is Best Child Development, Home Nurses, the 10-year plan to end homelessness, 211 information and referral line, Mentoring Matters, Adult Learning, Daycare for infants and toddlers, after school and leadership programs, financial literacy, tax preparation, counseling for children and adults, access to healthcare services, and a program called Thriving at 3. It was a program adopted by the Tocqueville women who were very specifically interested and committed to focusing on the fact that early childhood development is critical to help our children succeed. The most significant brain development, as we know, happens by the time you're 3 years old and needs to be nurtured in those pre-kindergarten years. This evening, we have a mother who will tell her story. Marika McKay is here, and I'm going to invite Marika up so she can tell us the story of the power of a community helping with pre-K education.
Good evening. I'm so excited and grateful that my daughter, Madison, and I had the opportunity to experience the Raising a Reader program. I was so excited when we were introduced to this program. Madison was 3 years old when the Raising a Reader program was introduced. I was already a huge advocate for literacy. And so I was really excited about the introduction of the program because it was helping my daughter develop a love for reading, which she already had. And the timing of the program was absolutely perfect, and I just adored the concept. I thought it was amazing. Each week, we would receive a bright little red bag with 4 different very interesting, colorful, shiny books. I love the durability of them as they were almost tear and spill proof. Each child had their own bag with a week to read the books. Upon returning the books, new books were then given and the cycle would then begin again. Now, sometimes Madison would get very attached to those books, to a particular book, and it would have to go bye-bye. But then new ones would arrive, and she would be so excited about something new. Now, one might say, why not just go to the library? While we do enjoy regular trips to the library, we all know that hectic schedules don't always permit the frequency that I would like. So the program is like actually having the library come to you. So get excited about that. One of the things that's great about the program is that it actually teaches children responsibility. The children know it's their very own bag and that it has to be returned in order to receive new books. So I would sometimes forget the bag. And Madison would say, "Mommy, we have to bring my bag." So we started to put the bag by the door in the mornings it was due. And she would say, "Mommy, I have my bag, right?" And I would say, "Yes, we have your bag." So she understood the importance of keeping up with the bag as well as the books that were inside. I thought to myself, that bag sure does have magical powers. At the completion of the program, the kids graduate into getting a blue bag filled with new books that they actually can keep. And Madison was the happiest child then. I'd really like to thank the United Way of Greater Greensboro for the interest in our children and for designing such a phenomenal program. So thank you so much. And I wanted to show you all the actual bags that they received from graduation.
Thank you, Marika. This dinner is in honor of all of our current and former United Way of Greater Greensboro, Alexis de Tocqueville Society members. And you have watched names scroll behind me, and I'm sure it brings back pleasant memories of friendships and times together. Well, you're fortunate because you can continue those memories and those times together. We also are here to honor the Board of Directors, past chairpersons of the United Way. At this time, we will recognize how 3 people have especially helped to shape our corner of the world over the last 25 years.
Good evening, friends. I'm Carol Bruce, and I've served on the board of the United Way from 1986 through 1996, chairing the campaign in 93 and the board in 95. So I've known tonight's honoree, first honoree, Neil Belinkie, for a really long time. And thinking about Neil, there are 3 of his qualities that come to mind and are particularly important to me. First of all, Neil has always been committed to working in the best interest of all people. I served on the Presidential Search Committee back in 1990 that recommended Neil for his job as president. And during the interview process, I learned that Neil, as a college student, spent the summer of 1964 in my hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, going door to door, registering African American citizens to vote. As the daughter of a Birmingham City police officer, I knew then and still know how courageous and caring a young Massachusetts college student was in those strife-filled days of the civil rights movement in Birmingham. Neil to this day still reflects on that time in Alabama as the experience that put him on the path of what he wanted to do with his life. As president of the United Way, Neil continued to be innovative, courageous, and caring. Neil was the first person I heard talk about reviewing the work of nonprofit organizations by the outcomes they achieved rather than by the number of persons they served. Changing the United Way funds allocation process to take results into account was revolutionary in the early 1990s. Neil was also the leader in the United Way movement to establish the 211 call referral system in our county, and also a leader in the group of local, state, and national leaders to plan and implement the 10-year plan to end homelessness in Guilford County. In all of Neil's work, he mentored and supported the volunteers to make good things happen. He never sought the spotlight or accolades for himself. Neil is the consummate nonprofit executive. Since his retirement from the United Way, Neil has continued his commitment to our community by reorganizing the GTCC Foundation, co-chairing with Justice Fry the major capital campaign for the Civil Rights Museum, and working on the exciting TEDx programs for Greensboro. Secondly, Neil is fiercely competitive. During my days and nights working on the United Way campaign, I saw Neil work tirelessly to make the aggressive campaign goals to meet the even greater needs of this community. During the early 1990s, when the United Way of America president, William Aramone, resigned in disgrace and was later incarcerated, Neil worked relentlessly to explain to our community that the United Way of Greensboro was a local, independent organization chaired and by a board that was local citizens. Our campaign, of course, I'm talking about early 1990s, and I told you 93 was the year that I chaired the campaign. It was a tough time, and we struggled, but I'm pleased to say that the 1993 campaign exceeded its $10,960,000 capital goal for the year. And then in 1996, the United Ways across the country were asked to host the Olympic torch relay across our country. Neil was determined that the torch would come to Greensboro and that we would excel in hosting the torch relay. As the past chair of the board that year, Neil asked me to chair the torch relay the torch relay coming through, and I clearly remember that Sunday afternoon, June the 24th, 1996, that the torch was carried up the steps of the Melvin Municipal Building to the cheers of a large throng of our fellow citizens. And in reflecting on that, I realize today that we have several, at least one I know, of the community heroes who carried the torch through the relay in Greensboro, and that's our own Mike Weaver. The list had several names that you would recall. Is there anyone else that I might have missed? But Shirley Fry. Wow. Where'd you carry the torch, Shirley?
Pass it on to Mr. Sheets.
To Marty Sheets. Great, Shirley. Thank you. And also, I've seen Neil in his bicycling tights. I don't think that's exactly the name you call them. Cycling along Horsepin Creek Road on Sunday morning. And I think his love of his red Corvette shows also his very competitive spirit. Neil is driven to excel. Finally, Neil loves his family, his religion, and his community. Neil is extremely proud of his lovely wife of 46 years, Marilyn, and his 3 sons, Eric, David, and Stephen. And Stephen, we're so glad you're with us tonight. Ask Neil about his family, and you will learn very quickly of their many sterling accomplishments and abilities. Neil was president of Temple Emmanuel during the planning of the temple on Jefferson Road, and still serves very actively on the board of the temple. He volunteers for TEDx and mentors a young student at Wiley. I am so pleased that we are recognizing the lifetime of service that Neil Belinkie has given to Greensboro, and honored to call Neil to this podium.
Thank you very much, Carol. It's truly an honor for me to be recognized here along with Kay Stern and the Honorable Bonnie McElveen Hunter. I mean, that to me that's very humbling to me. But also, there are a large number of you here in this room who were very active with United Way when I was here. And a lot of what Carol talks about were really things that we all did together. And I don't know what's in here, and I'm not going to share it, but it's important to know that what we did, we really did together. And I do know that if you do for Michelle what you did for me, the next 25 years is going to be absolutely glorious for United Way. And so I thank you very much for this. I'm done. However, I've been asked to recognize the Honorable Bonnie McElveen Hunter. Bonnie, unfortunately, is in Washington tonight, but I prepared my remarks unless I lost them. And that to me is also an extraordinary honor because what Bonnie did for us here and the attention she brought to Greensboro across the country is absolutely remarkable. It was actually Carol Bruce that first introduced me to Bonnie back in 1997 when she was recruiting Bonnie and Bynum to co-chair the Alexis de Tocqueville Society the following year. Bonnie was already a very accomplished business leader in Greensboro, but it was actually Bynum who was best known because Bynum was from Greensboro and everybody knew him to be just a terrific attorney. However, even though Bonnie wasn't well known at that time by her own statement, it was very clear that the seeds of what was going to come in the future were already there. And the Bonnie Hunter who became the ambassador to Finland, the Bonnie Hunter who became the first woman to chair the Red Cross of America, the Bonnie Hunter who really championed international women's causes, including putting an end to child trafficking. In 1997, that was Bonnie of the future. But the Bonnie of that time was somebody who was a devoted daughter, committed to her family. She was a person who was inspired by her deep religious conviction. I think those of you who know her can attest how true that is. Her friends would say then, and I'm sure would still say, that she was not happy unless there was something just beyond her grasp. And of course, she had a steel resolve to win, and there was absolutely no quitting in her vocabulary. So when she agreed to chair the Tocqueville Society with Bynum, it was clear, even though not to me, that something very special was going to happen. And Bonnie took the job, and she contacted me several weeks later and said, I really need to find my unfair advantage. And I think some of you may have heard Bonnie talk about her unfair advantage. I asked her what it was. She said, well, it's clear. She said, I understand women. I said, okay. And she said, women control a majority of the philanthropic wealth in this country. Yet it's really men who get the credit, and it's men who make the decisions. And she said, I'm going to change that. I'm going to create a women's Alexis de Tocqueville Society, and I'm going to give them the credit they deserve for a cause of their choosing, which was children. And then she said, by the way, I'm going to recruit 40 new Alexis de Tocqueville members. We only had 39 at the time. So anyway, that was Bonnie. The rest is what they say legends are made of. I think those of you who have been around a while are aware of the famous Wall Street Journal full-page ad that listed all the women in the Alexis de Tocqueville Society. That was seen all over the nation. Yes, she did get 40 new members. And immediately, Greensboro became the largest Alexis de Tocqueville community in the nation. We became larger than New York City, which was the financial capital of the world. Within several years, that society quickly grew to 150 cities, and very soon after that, over $1 billion was being raised across the country by women Alexis de Tocqueville societies, all because Bonnie was looking for her unfair advantage. And then in 2004, Bonnie would receive the National Alexis de Tocqueville Award for her leadership. But I happen to believe, and I have not talked to Bonnie about this, but I think more than the money raised, I have to believe the most important accomplishment was that she changed the face of philanthropy across the country. Because you see, women always sat at the philanthropic table, but they very rarely chaired the table. And because of what she did with the Alexis de Tocqueville Society, in city after city, women now move to chair the table, and in chairing the table, they changed the agenda. And the issues that were important to them emerged as our nation's primary issues. And I think Bonnie would be most proud of that. On a more local note, I also think that Bonnie showed us all that the power is within each one of us to change the world. It simply takes a great vision, tremendous courage, and of course, a great plan. So with that, I think we all honor Bonnie, what she has done for us and for people across our great nation. She has been a terrific example of what's best in our society. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'll take this for Bonnie.
Good evening. I am Mike Weaver, and the son-in-law of Kay Stern and the late Sidney Stern, our honorees. I have been a long-time community volunteer and supporter of the Greater Greensboro United Way. Also, I am a member of the Alexis de Tocqueville Society. When Tom Brokaw was writing his bestseller, The Greatest Generation, he was describing Kay and Sidney Stern. Both grew up in the Depression and were cut from the same cloth. Generous, personable, pragmatic, and empathetic. It would be long-winded and quite tedious of me to try to list their many accomplishments, awards, committees served on. I would rather highlight them with just a few stories. Sidney, a Greensboro native, grew up in Fisher Park, attended Temple Emmanuel, Aycock School for 9 years, and then Greensboro Senior High School. In the mid-30s, after graduating from UNC Law School, Sidney returned home to practice law with his father. In 1938, he and a group of adventurous JCs started the Greater Greensboro Open Golf Tournament. It remains one of the longest-running tournaments on the PGA Tour schedule. In the early 1940s, Sidney joined the Army and served a long tour of duty in Europe. After the war, Sidney became a powerhouse in law and business. His greatest business success was co-founding United Guaranty and from a small two-room office operation to becoming the largest private mortgage operation in America. Next is a personal story. In the late 1960s, there was a new city club being formed in Greensboro. I was pretty young, naive, and without thinking, immediately agreed to become a founding director. These were the days when many in Greensboro did not fully accept gender and racial equality. A few days later, I started to feel buyer's remorse from worrying that the city club might not be accepting of diversity. My buyer's remorse became so strong that I eventually went to see my friend Sidney Stern for advice about resigning. Calmly, with that wonderful smile, he suggested that at the next board meeting, I make the motion for racial integration, and he would follow with the motion for gender diversity. If these motions did not pass, we would both immediately resign. There were some eyebrows raised, but thankfully both motions passed unanimously. Kay Stern. Kay is so refined, So elegant, gracious, well-spoken. You get the picture. What you would not know is that as a youth, she was a stringer on a tobacco farm, once had malaria, and was a starter on her high school tennis team. You might guess correctly that she played Dorothy in a Wizard of Oz play, but you would probably never believe that she spent her summers in a 2-bedroom farmhouse with no electricity, no telephone, and no neighbors. Reputedly, this farm had been won by her father in 1919 in a poker game. By the way, this property is still in family ownership. Intelligent and independent, Kay went to Duke University in the fall of 1942 and graduated in 3 years. Those 3 years began a long love affair with Duke University. Kay served 12 years as a trustee and is, at 89 years old, is still active as a trustee emeritus. At age 24, just after accepting a marketing job in New York City, she met a young lawyer from Greensboro named Sidney Stern. This was at the home of Arthur Bleetenthal's parents in Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina. Sidney was instantly smitten, as we all are when we meet Kay, and he asked her for another date the following weekend before she set off to New York for her new career. Then he made other weekend trips to the Big Apple and hastily proposed after a mere 6 weeks after they met. The Greensboro newspaper, writing about Kay's acceptance of Sidney's proposal, read, and I quote, "It is rumored she turned down no less than 20 suitors up and down the Atlantic seaboard before her inclination towards Sidney, love at first sight, started." Since moving to our community 60 plus years ago, Kay has been at the forefront of civic affairs. To mention a few, the Children's Home Society, Gateway, the Junior League, Parent Planned Hood, and Greensboro Historic Preservation Society. That gives you a little feel for the breadth and depth of her interest in this community. In street language, Kay walks the talk, and just recently donated a conservation easement on her lovely home in Greensboro to the Greensboro Historic Preservation Society. Sidney and Kay saw all of us, whether rich or poor, black or white, disabled or different in some way, as one family. And thus they both loved United Way's premise and mission that we as a community help each other. Kay and Sidney helped establish this chapter of the Alexis de Tocqueville Society and also served as its first co-chairs. Shortly thereafter, in the early 1990s, United Way's leadership was considering staging an unprecedented bricks and mortar campaign alongside their normal campaign. The purpose would be to raise $1 million+ for a new headquarters building. For all the people involved in United Way, the leadership, the elephant in the room was how much might this extra fundraising cannibalize the present and future annual campaigns. Sidney and Kay were concerned, so concerned, that they solved the problem by stepping up and donating the entire amount needed for the building. I know I speak for everyone in the room when I say thank you, Kay, for yours and Sidney's generosity of time, resources, and spirit in making the United Way of Greensboro and our community at large a better place to live. Kay wishes she could be with us tonight, but unfortunately she is home under the weather. She sends her warmest regards to each of you.
There's nothing like a love story. When you think of the work and the impact of United Way, there's really nothing further to say than what you've already heard. We will always treasure the sincerity and compassion of Neil, Bonnie, Sydney, and Kay. Thank you again. The brave new world is in front of us. I am here as part of the United Way of Greater Greensboro simply because I care. I want to improve the city that I call my city. It is unacceptable to me, and it brings me sadness when I think of the fact that 1 in 5 families are living in poverty in our city right now. It is unacceptable to me that not every young person will graduate from high school. It is unacceptable to me that all children do not have a book that they can call their own. It is unacceptable to me that every person, every child, does not have a caring adult in their life. Let's change these trends together. On March 12th of this year, the Board of Directors for the United Way of Greater Greensboro made a strategic decision that we would focus all of our future work on breaking the cycle of poverty. It is inspiring to know that boys and girls, men and women, will have new opportunities to live the American dream. I ask you and I invite you to continue your roles as community leaders. Let's together change the headline from 20% poverty in Greensboro to something that promises the common good for all. Philanthropy is not about the size of the check that you will write. It is not about the titles we hold. Philanthropy is about love. It's about love of humanity. I thank you for the love that you have expressed over the last 25 years. I look forward to winning with you and others who will join us by living united in Greensboro, North Carolina. Thank you very much for being here this evening, but most of all, thank you for living united. Have a great evening.